I spent months planning the perfect Independence Day vacation with my daughter, only to get a text saying she was too busy with exams to join me. But 24 hours later, I saw her social media posts. She was at the beach with our housekeeper and the housekeeper's son, who happens to be her boyfriend. She was calling our housekeeper Mom, and posing like one big happy family while I sat alone with packed suitcases. That is when I realized my own daughter had chosen a stranger over me, so I made a choice too. I can't stop wondering how something like this could unfold for any of us anywhere in the world. I am genuinely curious. Where are you watching from? Share your thoughts in the comments. Our community's insights mean everything to me. If you are craving more stories that provoke reflection, do subscribe. Now, back to what happened next in my story. I was carefully packing for a long-planned Independence Day vacation with my daughter when a message popped up on my phone from her. I need to stay on campus to prepare for exams. I don't have time to go anywhere. Cold, distant tone made my heart sink, but I still told her to take care of herself. Scrolling through social media, I came across a post from my daughter's roommate that stopped me cold. Living my best life. Lily, don't forget to bring me back some souvenirs. The photos showed my daughter and our housekeeper dressed in matching mother-daughter outfits, playing on a beach. Standing beside them was the housekeeper's son, all three making heart shapes with their hands toward the camera. The caption felt like a knife to my heart. With Mom and my boyfriend, my real family. Each word cut deep into my chest. For 10 years, I had worked my ass off to give her a comfortable life, yet in her eyes I meant less than a stranger. I immediately froze all her bank cards and calmly called our housekeeper, Margaret Springfield. Starting tomorrow, you don't need to come in anymore, madam. What do you mean by that? Margaret's voice carried panic and hurt through the phone. I spoke calmly, exactly what it sounds like. You are fired. Is this about Lily, madam? Please don't get the wrong idea. Lily insisted that Lucas and I join her for a little trip. She said you were busy with work and didn't want to spend Independence Day alone at school. Her words were as smooth as always, putting all the blame on others while making me look like an absent, uncaring mother. Is that so? Did she happen to mention that she told me she needed to stay on campus to study for exams? Margaret fell silent on the other end. After a few seconds, I heard her muffled sobs through the phone. Madam, please don't be angry with Lily. It is all my fault. I didn't handle the situation properly. Lily just feels so sorry for Lucas and me. She thinks we work too hard and wanted us to relax a little. Enough. I cut off her emotional manipulation. I'll have accounting transfer this month's wages to you. That is all. I hung up and stared at that painful photograph. There was my daughter, Lily Richardson, intimately linking arms with Margaret, smiling more radiantly than I had ever seen her smile. The high-end matching outfits they wore were ones I had bought for Lily just last month. She had barely glanced at them then, dismissing them as too ugly. Now I understood. It wasn't that she disliked them. She simply didn't want to wear them with me. 10 years ago, my husband's alcohol-fueled violence forced me to leave with Lily, walking away with nothing. Over the years, I worked relentlessly to become Lily's financial security, afraid she might suffer. I hired the best housekeeper and provided her with a dedicated driver. But our driver died in a car accident 2 years ago. Margaret had tearfully begged me, saying her son Lucas had just graduated college and was an honest, hard-working young man who could replace our driver. Considering that she too was a single mother struggling alone, my heart softened. And I agreed. Looking back now, it was like inviting wolves into our home. Less than 10 minutes later, Lily's call came through, her voice more furious than I had ever heard. Why did you freeze my cards? I was trying to pay for something abroad, and the staff looked at me like I was crazy. Do you know how humiliating that was? She didn't even bother to call me Mom. I could hear how angry she was. I leaned against the cold wall, drawing out my words slowly and deliberately. Weren't you supposed to be studying on campus? How did you find time to be humiliated abroad? The phone went dead silent. A few seconds later, Her voice, shrill with embarrassment and rage, nearly burst my eardrum. "Are you spying on me? Just because I wouldn't go on vacation with you, you freeze my cards?" "What kind of mother does that?" "Mother?" Was she referring to Margaret, the one wearing matching outfits in the photo? I spoke each word deliberately. "Lily Richardson. Those cards were opened by me, with money I earned. Since you found yourself a new family, my money shouldn't be yours to spend." "You are being completely unreasonable," she screamed. "What is wrong with me taking Margaret on a little vacation? Care means more than blood. If it weren't for her managing the household and caring for me, you'd never have had such a good life." It felt like ice water being poured over my head. According to her logic, I should be grateful for Margaret's contribution. "Lily," I spoke softly, "do you remember when you were 8 years old? When your father went into one of his drunken rages with a knife, and I held you while we spent the night hiding under a bridge?" Lily paused, clearly not expecting me to bring up this painful memory. "I remember there were so many mosquitoes under the bridge that I kept crying." My smile deepened. "I was completely broke then, and couldn't even afford a motel room. Watching you covered in mosquito bites, I swore you would never suffer like that again. When you were 9, you were almost kidnapped while we were selling goods at a roadside stand. That is when I desperately found Margaret, but she used your dependence on her to demand salary increases every year. I had no choice but to keep giving in. When you were 10, Margaret fed you takeout that gave you food poisoning. Afraid of being found out, she gave you half a bottle of painkillers. If I hadn't rushed you to the hospital in time, the consequences would have been unthinkable. For your 15th birthday, I gave you a phone that went missing within 2 days. The tracking showed it was at Lucas's school. Tell me, how many more of these coincidences do you think there were?" After about half a minute of silence, Lily's voice came back cold and mocking. "Stop trying to turn me against them. If you hadn't insisted on the divorce, I wouldn't have become a child of a broken home with such an insecure personality. If you really loved me, you'd unfreeze those bank cards right now. Otherwise what?" I tried to keep my voice from shaking. "You'll cut all ties with me." Even through the phone, I could feel Lily's seething anger. "You think I wouldn't dare? I can survive just fine without you. Just because you have some money doesn't make you so important. After I marry Lucas, I'll have in-laws to support me and you. You'll end up in a nursing home where the staff will mistreat you, and you'll die alone with no one to care." I couldn't believe these words were coming from my own daughter. The same Lily who used to curl up in my arms and innocently say, "Mommy loves me best. When I grow up, I want to take good care of you." Only those closest to us know exactly what to say to cut us deepest. My voice was strangely calm. "Good. I hope you'll be a dutiful daughter-in-law." After hanging up, I leaned against the cold wall as tears that had been building for so long finally fell. The betrayal of family love cuts like a bitter winter wind, piercing to the bone. The next morning, I received a call from my ex-husband, Robert Richardson. He opened with his usual criticism. "Susan, have you lost your mind? Lily can't even afford her hotel abroad. Are you trying to drive her to desperation?" Since our divorce, Robert had never paid a cent in child support. Every expense for Lily had been my responsibility. 2 years ago, when he learned he was infertile and his dream of having a son was permanently shattered, he began frequently contacting Lily. While he showed no kindness to me, his ex-wife, he always played the role of a perfect, caring father in front of Lily. I replied dismissively, "Robert Richardson, your precious daughter has already accepted the housekeeper as her mother. If you are so concerned, wire her the money yourself. Don't bother me." Robert was momentarily speechless, then raised his voice again. "The kid doesn't know any better. You are taking her angry words seriously. It is normal for her to have good feelings toward a housekeeper who has cared for her for so many years. You are just too sensitive and narrow-minded." My anger surged instantly. A housekeeper who secretly encouraged her son to date my daughter, and the 3 of them went abroad on a family vacation using my money. "Robert Richardson, you call that good feelings?" Robert was struck speechless. Clearly feeling guilty, his tone softened. All right. I'll transfer some money to Lily first. Susan, don't take this the wrong way, but young people should be free to love whom they choose. What is wrong with the housekeeper's son? As long as our daughter is happy, we should support her. Just like when I married you against my parents' wishes? I laughed bitterly, and then endured a marriage filled with beatings? Even through the phone, I could feel Robert's embarrassment turning to rage. That was because you were asking for it. That is completely different from this. Lily is your own flesh and blood. I smiled with self-deprecating irony. I don't have that kind of daughter. I hung up abruptly, cutting off whatever else Robert was about to say. I felt as though the gaping hole my daughter had torn in my heart was being filled with a cold, hard resolve. This wasn't about being stubborn. I was truly exhausted. For 10 years, I had spun like a top, attending endless business dinners and signing countless contracts. No matter how busy I was, I never missed a single parent-teacher conference or birthday. I worked desperately to make money, trying to compensate for the disadvantage of her broken home, believing that providing financial security was the same as loving her. But I was wrong. I had raised an ungrateful child who couldn't distinguish between good and bad, who treated strangers as family. I thought that once her cards were frozen, they would quickly return home with their tails between their legs. Instead, Lily took the jade pendant I had given her for her 18th birthday to a pawn shop, allowing the three of them to extend their vacation for several more days. During this time, she never contacted me again, as if I, her biological mother, had simply vanished from her world. My life seemed unchanged, except that the daughter I had once treasured was no longer part of my expectations. Independence Day passed quickly, and the first thing Lily did upon returning was post a long message on social media condemning my heartlessness. My phone was bombarded with calls from various relatives. Susan, why are you being so stubborn with the child? Lily is still young and doesn't understand. You need to be more forgiving. Exactly. That housekeeper seems really good to me. She genuinely cares about Lily. Why did you fire her? Have you become so focused on business that your heart has turned cold? Just because the child said some angry words, you cut off her living expenses? Is that any way to be a mother? Every voice was defending Lily Richardson and Margaret Springfield. It was then I realized that in her 10 years with our family, Margaret had infiltrated my family relationships like a spider's web, and I was like the butterfly trapped in the center of that web, completely unaware. Too tired to argue, I simply posted pages from Lily's diary on social media. I hope Mom never comes home, so Margaret won't have to serve her anymore. Margaret said that to become a good daughter-in-law, I need to hand over all financial assets for safekeeping. Margaret was sick today. I hope I can trade 20 years of Mom's life for her health. Words like these seem to have sharp hooks, drilling into everyone's hearts. Social media exploded, and the tide of opinion began to turn. How can this ungrateful girl be so disloyal? Can a housekeeper ever compare to your real mother? Without your mom's salary, let's see if she'd still be so nice to you. What kind of spell has this Margaret cast on her? The child's thinking is completely twisted. You should have fired her immediately. You should have left her with Robert Richardson from the beginning, so she'd know what it means to not appreciate what you have. The sharp comments from relatives made Lily furious. She called me repeatedly with angry voice messages, all of which I declined. When love is gone, emotions are powerless. When emotions are gone, everything crumbles. From now on, I would live only for myself. A few days later, I was in a company meeting when my assistant knocked and entered, looking concerned. Miss Richardson, your daughter and the former housekeeper Margaret are downstairs. They insist on seeing you. Security can't stop them. Send them up. I raised an eyebrow soon. All three were escorted into my office. As soon as Lily saw me, her eyes reddened, her voice full of grievance. Mom, why are you treating me like this? Do you know how much I've suffered? I stared at her tanned skin and the new luxury bracelet on her wrist, unable to see any evidence of suffering. Then I turned my attention to Margaret beside her. She wore an expensive designer dress with Lily's pearl necklace around her neck, no longer showing any trace of her former modesty. She forced an ingratiating smile. "Madam, it is my fault. I shouldn't have gone abroad with Lily. If you are going to blame someone, blame me. But please don't damage the mother-daughter relationship." Though she kept her head low, I still caught a glimpse of smugness in her expression. I looked away and said coldly, "Margaret Springfield, you've already been dismissed. My family affairs are not for an outsider like you to interfere with." Margaret bit her lower lip hard and looked to Lily for help. Lily immediately exploded. "How can you talk to Margaret like that? She has taken care of me for 10 years. What gives you the right to fire her?" "The fact that I am the employer and she is the housekeeper. But Margaret loves me more than you do." Tears welled in Lily's eyes. "She never bothered me about studying or eating snacks. She even went with me to get a tattoo, and you, always saying no to this, no to that, like some kind of control freak." Lucas protectively pulled her into his arms, speaking with obvious implications. "Lily, Mom and I genuinely care about you, unlike certain people who only know how to throw money around without understanding what real care means." What a touching display of care. Looking at these 3 people united against me, I found myself laughing despite the situation. "Are you finished?" Lily was stunned, clearly not expecting this reaction from me. I threw a bank card across the desk. "This card contains all your college tuition and estimated living expenses for 4 years. $1 million total, transferred in full to this new account." Lily's face showed a flash of joy, quickly replaced by confusion. Margaret and Lucas exchanged puzzled glances. I leaned back in my chair, looking directly into Lily's eyes, speaking each word clearly. "This $1 million represents the total child support I owe you. From this moment forward, there is no longer any relationship between us." Lily's face turned deathly pale, unable to believe what she was hearing. "Mom, what are you saying?" I stood up, looking down at her. "Didn't you say that care means more than blood? Didn't you think Margaret was more like your mother than I am? Fine, I'll grant you that wish. Take this money and go live happily with the family you love most." Lucas bristled, pointing his finger at me and shouting, "What kind of mother are you? We don't want your dirty money." Slap. I raised my hand and delivered a hard blow to his face, showing no mercy. "Mom, what are you doing?" Lily shoved me away forcefully. I stumbled backward and hit the corner of the coffee table hard. Blood began flowing from my elbow, instantly staining my white sleeve red. Margaret immediately smirked with satisfaction. "What goes around comes around, madam. Don't get too angry. It is bad for your health." Lily reflexively moved toward me, but I dodged away. My eyes filled with wariness and distrust. I walked to my desk and pressed the emergency button. "There are people causing a disturbance in my office. Please come handle it, and call the police." Hearing the word police, Margaret and Lucas's faces completely changed. Lily patted Margaret's shoulder reassuringly. "Don't worry, Margaret. She started the violence. If anyone's getting arrested, it should be her." I raised an eyebrow and smiled coldly. "Are you sure about that? What if they're fugitives?" Before Lily could react, I threw several photographs onto the desk. "Remember Mr. Davis, our driver who died 2 years ago. The hit and run killer has been identified." Lily rushed forward to grab the photos, desperate to know who had killed the kind Mr. Davis. When she saw the perpetrator's clear face in the photograph, her hand froze in midair. Lily looked up sharply to see Lucas's evasive eyes and flushed face. Whether it was his panicked expression or his features, everything matched the person in the photograph perfectly. I said calmly, "To get close to you, Lucas resorted to any means necessary, even killing Mr. Davis." "Lily Richardson, do you really think these 2 care about you? They're only after your money. Enough." Lily shot me a look of disgust. "So what if he did?" I was stunned for a moment, unable to believe she could say something so outrageous. Lucas killed someone for me. Why should I blame him? Love means taking what you want by force. Besides, who knows if these photos are fake? You probably made them up to break us apart. Just because your own marriage failed doesn't mean you want everyone else to be miserable like you. Hearing Lily's groundless accusations, I felt none of the heartache and sorrow I had experienced before. Even as she raged at me, I calmly applied antiseptic to my wound, not wanting it to become infected. Security arrived quickly and began dragging Margaret and Lucas away. Margaret kept shouting, "Help! Susan Richardson is trying to commit murder to cover her tracks." Lily initially wanted to chase after them, but then she grabbed a fruit fork from the coffee table and held it to her own throat. She stared at me with intensely venomous eyes, emphasizing each word. "Susan, make them let Margaret and Lucas go, or I'll die right here in front of you." I never imagined that my own daughter, whom I had carried for 9 months, would one day use the threat of death to force me. Her own mother, for the sake of 2 strangers. 19 years of devotion had ultimately been nothing more than self-deception. Let them go. Get out of here. I didn't want any deaths on my hands. Lily, confident that I cared about her, immediately looked triumphant. "Mom, I am sorry, but I am going to live the life I want." With that, Lily left arm with Margaret and Lucas. Watching the 3 of them walk away, I slowly closed my eyes and repeatedly told myself that my daughter was dead. From that day forward, I put away all photos of Lily and instructed my lawyer to remove her from my will. During my free time on weekends, I began volunteering at orphanages, bringing warmth to children who were truly in need. Hearing the children sweetly call me Mama Susan made me realize how meaningless the concept of blood relations really is. After reporters photographed me as the most beautiful philanthropist, our company's stock prices soared at an astonishing rate, and our baby products were particularly sought after. Relatives began eager to curry favor, hoping their own children might be chosen as my successors. My peaceful days were short-lived. I received another call from Robert Richardson, saying Lily hadn't attended classes for a week and her academic advisor couldn't reach me. The reason was simple. She had listed Margaret Springfield's number as her mother's contact information. I rubbed my temples and said flatly, "I have no idea where she is." "What?" Robert's voice shot up. "Her last social media post said her mother was sick and she was going home to take care of her." Robert Richardson, Lily has severed our mother-daughter relationship. Her mother is someone else entirely. Half an hour later, Robert called again, his voice panicked. "Susan, Lily is missing. Margaret Springfield's phone is disconnected, and even her identification is fake." After 10 years of patient planning, Margaret definitely wasn't just after money. "Call the police. Call the police." Robert was stunned. "What would we report?" Lily went with them voluntarily. "Margaret Springfield and Lucas kidnapped my daughter and stole my money. If that is not abduction and theft, what is?" Robert was still hesitating. "But what if Lily blames us?" I snorted coldly. "Robert Richardson, stop pretending to be the loving father. You've been trying to win her favor because you hope she'll take care of you in your old age. If something really happens to Lily, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Hearing this, Robert immediately dialed 911 without further hesitation. Regardless of what Lily had done to me, she was still just a young woman. I couldn't stand by and watch a vibrant life be destroyed by 2 people with evil intentions. The police quickly opened a case and, through bank card transaction records, rapidly located their position at a villa deep in the mountains. Robert and I rushed there overnight. With the assistance of local police, we finally found them. When we pushed open the courtyard gate, I saw Lily carrying a baby on her back, kneeling by a well-washing Lucas's foul-smelling sneakers. Margaret lounged in a wicker chair, cracking sunflower seeds while wielding a whip. "You useless girl, you claim to be a college student, but can't even wash a pair of shoes properly." My pampered daughter, her hands soaked in the icy well water, trembled all over while nodding. "I understand, Mom. I'll make sure they're perfectly clean." Lily couldn't believe her eyes and immediately dropped the shoes, throwing herself at me like grasping for a lifeline. "Mommy, I am not dreaming, am I? Is it really you? Oh, thank goodness." She grinned while tears streamed down her face, looking both crazy and pitiful. I deliberately pulled away, maintaining distance between us. Slowly and indifferently, I said, "You've mistaken me for someone else. I am not your mother." After a moment of stunned silence, Lily suddenly collapsed to her knees, covering her face as she began to sob. When maternal love is exhausted, only weariness and indifference remain. I would deserve whatever fate awaited me if I looked back at her even once after gaining this hard-won clarity at such a cost. Robert charged forward and grabbed Margaret by the collar, roaring, "You evil woman, what were your intentions? How dare you kidnap my daughter to this God-forsaken place?" He then delivered several hard slaps, the sharp sounds echoing through the courtyard. I expected Margaret to cry and beg for mercy. She stared intently at the man before her, her voice hoarse as she demanded, "Robert Richardson, have you forgotten me?" Robert's movement stopped abruptly as he stared at this crazed woman. For a moment, this face seemed to overlap with that of a young, innocent girl from 20 years ago. He was thunderstruck. The woman standing before him wasn't just anyone, she was his first love from over 20 years ago, Linda Springfield. At the same time, Lucas heard the commotion and rushed out from the house. Seeing his mother being beaten, he let out a howl and lunged at Robert. "How dare you touch my mother?" The two men immediately began wrestling. One was young and strong, the other had been weakened by alcohol and debauchery. The difference in strength was obvious. Lucas quickly pinned Robert to the ground, his fists showing no mercy. In desperation, Robert grabbed a nearby iron shovel and swung it hard at Lucas's head. There was a dull thud. A massive amount of blood gushed from Lucas's head. He convulsed twice and then died instantly. Time seemed to freeze. The next second, Linda let out a heart-wrenching wail. She pointed at Robert, screaming hysterically, "He was your biological son." Robert's facial muscles twitched as he stared blankly at Lucas lying in a pool of blood. "Linda, what did you say?" he asked in disbelief. Linda rushed forward like a madwoman, holding Lucas's body and babbling. "Son, open your eyes and look. This is your runaway father. After 20 years, he has finally come back." Everyone was shocked by this revelation. Lily finally couldn't bear this devastating news and collapsed, fainting dead away. Robert's eyes were empty, as if his soul had been extracted. He had longed for a son his entire life to carry on the family name. Now a son had appeared, and he had killed him with his own hands. Regret and rage intertwined. Robert became like an enraged lion. He grabbed the shovel again, his eyes red with fury as he swung it at Linda. "You lying witch! I don't have a son! He is not my son!" Polis quickly moved to restrain the distraught Robert and took Linda to the station for questioning. In the interrogation room, Linda finally revealed the entire truth. She was 3 years older than Robert. Over 20 years ago, after they became intimate, she accidentally became pregnant. Afterward, Robert, afraid of taking responsibility, fled the village in the middle of the night. Unwed pregnancy was a huge scandal in those days. To avoid public shame, Linda's parents forced her, while heavily pregnant, to marry a violent 60-year-old bachelor in the village. Her married life was filled with endless beatings and torment. Years later, Linda finally she sold her property and tracked down Robert's whereabouts, only to discover he had remarried and had a daughter. Thinking of the hellish life she and her son had endured, seeds of hatred grew wildly in her heart. Looking at Lily's face, which bore 60% resemblance to Robert's, Linda's hatred intensified. She couldn't accept it. Why should her son suffer while Robert's daughter lived in luxury? So she changed her name and became a housekeeper, pretending to love Lily while actually molding her into a selfish, romance-obsessed fool. The more I was hurt by Lily's behavior, the more Linda rejoiced. As her ambitions grew, she began encouraging her son to pursue Lily. She even planned to gradually poison me by tampering with my supplements, weakening my health so that Lily could inherit everything upon graduating college. By then, all the assets would belong to her and her son. But plans couldn't keep up with changes. With evidence of Lucas's killing of our driver in my hands, they had no choice but to cut their losses, taking the $1 million I had given Lily and fleeing. They hadn't originally planned to bring Lily, seeing her as a burden, but Lily pestered them relentlessly. For the sake of so-called love, she abandoned her studies and ran after them, only to discover that Lucas was already married with a child. Lily finally realized she had been deceived by these two family members for years and cried, threatening to go to the police. But Linda and Lucas couldn't let her go. They took her to the mountains and kept her prisoner. The formerly pampered, wealthy young lady became an overnight servant to their entire household. At the police station, Officer Anderson handed me Lily's medical report. He sighed slowly. "Your daughter is covered in injuries. They're inhuman. I heard she is an art student. It is best to let her hand bones heal completely before she draws again." I nodded calmly, acknowledging that I understood. Perhaps my attitude was too cold. Officer Anderson added, "Robert Richardson will face 20 years for manslaughter. If you could find a good lawyer to defend him, he might get a reduced sentence." Before he could finish, I picked up my purse and stood, saying coldly, "Thank you for your hard work, Officer Anderson. When you do wrong, you must face the consequences. I trust in the justice of the law." This 20-year saga of resentment finally ended in a tragic and absurd manner. Walking out of the police station, dawn was breaking. I looked up at the rising red sun, blazing but also warm. During Lily's hospitalization, I visited only once. She wore an oversized hospital gown, her baby fat long gone, her hands covered with purple needle marks. When she saw me, her red, swollen eyes immediately came alive. Her lips trembled as she spoke in a dry, hoarse voice. "Mom," without responding, I took a bank card from my purse and placed it on her bedside table. My tone held no warmth. "There is $500,000 on this card. Buy whatever you need." I turned to leave immediately. "I don't want money." Lily was practically screaming as she struggled down from the hospital bed and collapsed to the floor. "Mommy, I really know I was wrong. Mom, please, I beg you. Don't abandon me, okay?" She crawled over and desperately grabbed my pants leg as if clutching her entire world. I forcefully shook off her hand, looking at her with cold indifference. Then, gently, deliberately, I told her, "Lily Richardson, you abandoned me first. As an adult, you must take responsibility for your words. I respect your decision to live the life you want, and please respect mine." My voice was light and calm, yet it felt like an axe splitting Lily's heart. In her memory, no matter how outrageous her behavior had been since childhood, as long as she cried and apologized, Mom would always soften and forgive her, afterward loving her even more. But this time, Mom had changed. Lily sniffled, forcing back her tears. "Mom, do you remember, on my 18th birthday, we released lanterns into the sky? You said you had only one birthday wish you wanted your daughter to be safe, healthy, and worry-free forever." An involuntary pang of sadness hit me. How could I not remember? She was my precious daughter, born after 9 months of carrying her. I would have given her the entire world, but what was the result? Blood relations might bind us, but our hearts were separated by vast distances. When I was locked in that dark, windowless storage room, I wanted to die so many times. But thinking of your wish, I didn't dare. I was afraid that if your wish didn't come true, you would be sad. Lily could barely continue speaking, covering her face as she wept inconsolably. I sighed softly, knelt down, and looked directly into her eyes. I asked gently, "Lily, was it painful to be betrayed by those closest to you?" Lily didn't answer immediately. Only when her lower lip was white from biting did she slowly nod. "Would you forgive them? Would you accept living with them again?" Lily buried her head low, her nails digging into her palms. The answer was obvious. I slowly stood up, took a set of keys from my purse, and placed them on the table with a clear ringing sound. The house we lived in before is yours now. Don't disturb me in the future. With that, I turned and left without looking back. Behind me came Lily's anguished wails, echoing through the hospital corridor for a long time. People drift apart when they don't cherish each other. Hearts grow cold when they aren't true. Actually, my wish has never changed. But a heart that has been wounded, no matter how carefully mended, can never be restored to its original state. Latter, I sponsored girl after girl, bringing them from remote mountains to bustling cities. I gave them everything I could, never expecting anything in return. Every year on my birthday and holidays, the children would travel from various places to celebrate with me, sharing stories from hospitals where they saved lives, from rural villages. Each had become capable of supporting herself. Yet, whenever we met, they still gathered around me like when they were small, calling me Mama Susan, and sharing endless heartfelt conversations. Looking out at the sunlit green leaves, I suddenly understood. I was never the one giving, I was the one receiving. With my small light, I had illuminated these girls' paths forward, helping them become who they wanted to be. That is our story for today. We hope you enjoyed this incredible tale. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Subscribe for more captivating stories like this, and don't forget to like and share this video. Thank you for being here with us. See you next time.